Once again, we are back with another Aston Martin. This is the all-new 2024 DB12. And what's different? Almost everything. Apart from the rear end, we've got a completely revised front end. And if you saw my POV video with the demo car that Aston Martin Orlando had, and again, thanks to them for letting me borrow this one, that one got quite a lot of attention, actually. You know what the interior looks like, you know what the exterior looks like. We did a full walk around, but this time we're driving this car. And so let's go over it kind of, again, a quick refresher course, if you will. Here we have an all-new grille. In fact, an all-new bumper. Gone is the DB11's split grille design, where it had a grille that was about up to here in size, and then it had another little grille, an air inlet, if you want to call it that. That's completely gone. This front end looks like the DBS now, and when I drove the DBS, I remarked how beautiful that car was and how beautiful that front end was. And I think that's what makes this, in my opinion, the best Aston Martin ever made, or at least the best looking Aston Martin ever made. And they've basically given this new DB12 the DBS treatment. So again, massive grille, different headlights. They've widened the headlights. What's kind of, I'm gonna miss this little feature, no more clamshell. So the DB11 and the DBS were the last cars that had the clamshell for the DB models. So that is gone. This is a conventional hood now that just opens right over here and goes up, which I guess makes things a little bit easier if we're to talk about maintenance. Nonetheless, it loses a little bit of the appeal. I think most people won't notice it, but the grills are still retained in this hood. And I mean, just overall looking at this car, it looks like it wants to eat you alive. The exact same thing I said about the DBS. So let's go around the car. This particular model only does not have the carbon fiber options, nowhere. The demo car that I had the POV video with, it had it on the roof, it had it on the side skirts, and it even had it on the pillars. This does not. This is all black around, and it still looks absolutely menacing. 21-inch wheels. Here's the biggest improvement, and this was a huge complaint I had with the DBS. No more Pirellis. Aston Martin, thank you for listening, and the Aston Martin engineers, thank you for actually going through the car and saying to yourselves, hey, we need to add more grip to this car. So they fitted it with Michelin Pilot Sport 5S. So on the road, it grips. Very predictable through a turn. You can put the power down, 680 horsepower from this AMG V8. Yes, it is the same 4-liter V8, but heavily upgraded and revised. New turbos and things of that nature. Just an absolutely incredible car to drive. I'm so thrilled to finally be able to experience this thing. We're looking at the rear end. All of this is still the same rear end that carried over from the DB11, which is fine. The DB11 rear end was not particularly, it had nothing wrong with it. It wasn't the greatest looking rear end, but there was nothing wrong with it at the same time. I kind of wish the DBS rear end would have carried over into this car, but maybe, just maybe, Aston Martin's holding on to that for another S variant of the DB12. Otherwise, everything else is basically the same back here. Carbon ceramics are a $10,000 option. This particular car, after being driven a little bit spiritedly, nothing too crazy, they started to squeal, which is totally normal for carbon ceramics to do. But for street use, you don't need them. Save the 10 grand. The base price on this car is $240,000. As tested right now, it's sitting here, we're looking at 300 and change, I believe 310 or 312. But nonetheless, in the low 300s for a car spec'd out like this. Bang & Olufsen is also about another $10,000 to $12,000. I'd probably spec that because I love fantastic sounding audio system, especially in a luxury car like this. Oddly enough, still no soft closed doors. I don't understand it. You've got a $300,000 car, granted one that starts at $240, but no soft closed doors. A little bizarre. There are cars significantly cheaper than $240 that have soft closed doors, but what you still do have is these incredible swan wing doors. And the reason why these doors open like that is so you can clear a potentially high curb or anything of that nature. So still very, very beautiful to view every time you step foot out of this car or into this car. It just has so much presence. Aston Martin did an absolutely amazing job at really improving over the DB11. So having said that, I think it's time to jump into the interior. All right, in the interior of the Aston Martin DB12, you've seen pictures probably by now. If you've seen my POV video on the car where I go through the interior quite a bit, it is an enormous improvement. I mean, the problem with Aston Martins for a long time has been that every time a new model came out, the interior was dated since day one. The last V8 Vantage that came out had outdated Mercedes tech inside it, and that was a huge problem. That is no longer the case here. The DB11, the same thing, and the DBS as well. The biggest critique that I had, and so did all of you guys had when you would write a comment about the DBS, was gorgeous car, incredible performance, horrible interior. I wouldn't call it horrible, because the materials and all the luxury amenities and all that stuff was fantastic. It's just that screen was absolutely not worth the price of admission. I'm trying to be nice here, but this is a completely different environment. We're in a completely different stage, if you will. What are we looking at here? So we've got a touchscreen that's pretty responsive. Maybe not as responsive as some of the other cars in this segment, but still pretty darn responsive. Certainly nothing that I would spend too much time complaining about. You've got drive modes, you get telemetry, assistance, driver assistance. You can adjust your lighting in the cabin, adjust your lighting outside for when the car is closed. What I really like a lot is actually this setting under the vehicle mode, and it's called standby. What's standby mode? Standby mode allows you to park the car when engaged, allows you to park the car for up to 6 months without the battery being completely depleted. So it's going into a really, really, really low state of power, more so than usual. A lot of the tech that is usually running in these cars, even when they're off, completely shuts down. So I believe that the phone app that allows you to start the car, track the car, things of that nature, will not function as well. It shuts off the GPS, it shuts off anything that's connected to the cloud. So that goes away. But if you're traveling, you're the type of person that travels a lot, standby mode is very, very helpful, and especially if you don't have anywhere to charge it. You can adjust your parking settings, your tone, etc., how loud you want things to be, the pitch, etc., all standard stuff. Telemetry is a cool one, and that shows you, kind of like how BMWs do, it shows you your power and your torque, how much you're making at any given time. I do like to monitor battery voltage, especially as a car gets a little older, or if a car tends to sit, I drive it once a week or something like that. I'd like to monitor that, and thankfully there is such a setting here for me to see. Drive modes are pretty standard. You can individualize them, or you can just kind of use the pre-selected ones, which are GT, Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. Every setting has multiple variations. So for example, exhaust has 3 settings. There is the GT silent exhaust, Sport, and Sport Plus. I think I don't have to explain to you what the variables are here. The exhaust just gets progressively louder or quieter. You've got the suspension, same thing, GT, Sport, and Sport Plus, which adjusts the dampers and adjusts the steering feel and the weight of the steering. Thankfully, I can't stress this enough, the Squircle steering wheel is gone. So this is a round steering wheel with a little flat bottom over here. It's not as pronounced as a flat bottom as other sports cars, but it's still wonderful. Very thick rim. You've got a handful of settings over here. You can control your configurable display. You can adjust your cruise control from here. You can adjust your distance for your to keep from other cars. You can go up to 300 feet according to this display and maintain that distance on a highway or something along those lines. There's a lot of tech here, a lot of preventative tech from car accidents and such. You've got the standard blind side monitoring systems, you've got Apple CarPlay, you've got Android Auto as well, so everything comes standard. So if you're looking for a wonderful GT car with wonderful appointments, this car has basically everything you want. How good is the self-driving tech? I'm not sure. I'm not really going to test it, not especially because it's not really my car, but nonetheless, it's probably better than nothing. I did feel it working. I had to shut it off eventually for the purposes of my runs, but I did feel it working, and it felt like it was working really well. But when you're in a car like this, you really don't want too much driver assistance. You're probably just going to keep it off regardless. On a longer trip, I do like the fact that it can keep a distance so that, you know, you're on a highway and somebody short stops or something happens and the car is already keeping you 200-300 feet away from the car ahead of you, or it's already thinking about braking. It can react faster than you can. So all that tech is wonderful. Heated and cooled seats. My favorite aspect about this interior is, yes, it looks beautiful now. With the center console is a sight to see. Storage is okay, but again, my favorite is the tactile functions. And what I mean by that, it's the climate control buttons, which are actually wheels, and the volume is also a scrolling wheel. It's metal. So it's a very, very premium touch. And this right here, the engine start-stop, it's not just the start-stop button, but it's also the way you change drive modes. It's also metal. So it's got this really hefty click, click, click every time you move it. You feel its weight. It's the premium touches like this that make this car a considerable improvement over the DB11 and over the DBS. And for $240,000 base, there is so much to love about this. I think it's well worth the money. Lastly, the seats have actually remained, from what I can tell, they've remained the same over the DB11 and the DBS. It's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Those seats were gorgeous, as I explained in those reviews in the past. The seats were absolutely stunning. The quality of materials was absolutely wonderful. What they did get rid of, they got rid of this sliding center console, which is one less thing to break anyway, so it's no longer automated, it's manual now. The door inserts are freaking gorgeous. All of this quality leather. This piano black trim, there are multiple variations of these door inserts. You can get piano black, you can get a, looks like kind of like an anodized or brushed aluminum or wood. I would go for the wood personally. You can get all of that, so you can kind of mix and match this interior. So this has got black leather on the top, red leather here, and piano black. Piano black tends to be very fingerprint heavy, so I would go for the wood, as I had mentioned earlier. Now, having said that, I really think it's time to go for a drive because you have to see how good this car is on the road. So the last time I drove an Aston Martin was the DBS. It was a Superleggera, and I love that car. Oh my God, raw, visceral, absolutely insane. And I wasn't sure how that 5.2 liter V12 that originally debuted for the DB11, I wasn't sure how it was going to translate to the DBS, but with 710 horsepower, oh wow, that car was an absolute animal. And so we'll see how this feels. Ooh. Okay. That was a little bit. So here we have the Mercedes unit, the 4-liter, which originally also debuted in the Vantage. It was later available in the DB11 with about 503 horsepower. It got a bump to 528. Never really fit the DB11 in my opinion. It kind of barely fit the Vantage at the time as well. Now they've completely overhauled this monster. It's making a lot more power in the new Vantage that was just recently revealed, and in this car it makes 680 horsepower. There is an enormous amount of torque, an enormous amount of response. I am in full Sport Plus at the highest settings for the car. Everything is in firmest settings, everything's in its most responsive setting, and so far initial impressions really good. We've yet to hit any of the bends, just so we'll see how that goes. Quarter mile times and all that stuff haven't been published yet. Nobody's really reviewed it like that. But if I had to take a guess, I'm usually pretty good at this stuff. If I had to take a guess, this isn't too far off the DBS's performance. That was something like 11s, lower 11s at 130. So I would assume that this is about the same. The big difference is how this car puts its power down. But what I mean by that is how smoothly it puts it down. The DBS was very raw. When the torque hit, I mean, the rear end wanted to kill you. And I kind of like that about the car, but at the same time, you know, it was also a little bit tricky driving in certain situations. I'm not really feeling the rear end try to slip out. And that was a first gear pull to whatever it was, but I don't feel the rear end trying to snap. I don't feel it trying to lose traction or anything. It's just, it's there and it's gripping. And fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And right now we're gonna go over a few rumble strips. Not firm, definitely better dampened than the DBS that I drove months prior. Way better, and again, I think tires make a lot of difference here. Michelin's are just a better tire in general. I'm gonna put this into comfort, see if it adjusts quick enough. Okay, we're in GT mode now, which is comfort mode in this car. We're gonna go over another set of strips and I will react to the difference. Okay, not that big of a difference in GT. Now, how is the steering response? Let's see. So, you know, I'm a big stickler for fantastic steering. I don't like laggy response in steering. It's very, very good. Very good. Very minimal float. The rear end and the front end are connected. The car's doing exactly what I want it to do. It's honestly doesn't feel that much different than the DBS. And I think I'm gonna keep saying this. I'm gonna keep referring to the DBS because, you know, that this is effectively the car that's sort of replacing it, if you think about it. Because there's no V12 Aston Martin, and allegedly Aston Martin won't be doing another V12. We'll see about that. What is a DB car or DB variant without a DBS? Let's go into comfort mode one more time and go over these giant speed bumps. Wow, okay, so maybe in, you know, sharp impacts, you don't feel a big difference versus, you know, Sport Plus, but going over that, and again, we've got footage to show you, these are not small speed bumps, they're massive. That was extremely, wow. I would say comparable to the DBX. This is a beautifully balanced suspension, one of the best that I have experienced thus far. Ooh, ooh, it's dancing. Car's dancing. I like that. Okay, yeah. Oh man, this thing handles so well. This car performs so well. I am genuinely impressed. And you know, this being an AMG engine, it does sound really good. Again, after kind of being disappointed by the DB11 a little bit, I didn't particularly like the Vantage. The V12 is a different story, but I didn't particularly like the Vantage. I thought they kind of softened everything down. I also thought the AMG engine didn't really pair that well with the car. This is such a massive leap over the past cars, you know, not just the interior being, you know, a leap, but the driving experience, the handling, the body control, the looks. Oh yeah. Okay, yes. I'm kind of left a little speechless here because I went into this thinking, okay, it's an Aston Martin, it's a little soft and it's going to handle a certain way, but no, completely exceeded my expectations. And kudos to Aston Martin, kudos to this car for actually living up to its name and the marketing term that, you know, they've coined it the Super Tour, which is supercar and a Grand Tour mixed into one. This is very close to being Porsche 911 good, and I think the interior is a little bit better than a 911. This steering wheel is better than the 911, which has a very, very skinny steering wheel, which always kind of bothered me. And I just bought a 911. I love it, but it's just it's the little things. Build quality in this car, from materials to looks, aesthetics, it's actually better than a 911, which is the market that this car is looking to compete in. And then, you know, you've got Bentleys, and this might not quite be Bentley good, but you still have a lot of beautiful materials in this car. $240,000 base price. No, I don't think it's bad, actually. I think it's well worth the money. Depreciation is yet to be seen, that's yet to be determined, but the DBS has really held on to its value very, very well. The DB11, not so much. Hopefully the market reacts to it. Hopefully resale values stay high, because this is worth the 240 sticker. All right, now it's time to talk about performance. Okay, this car is not slow. I would estimate 0 to 60 in the threes, mid, maybe lower threes with launch. Quarter mile is going to be in the low 11s. I would say this car is just as fast as the DBS. Brakes are fantastic. Overall, everything about this car is fantastic. So if you're one of those people that really, really wanted a DBS and thought it was just too expensive, and you felt like you missed out, don't. I prefer this over the DBS for a variety of reasons. Obviously, all the luxurious enhancements that they've made to it, the aesthetics, but I would say it's more composed. It handles better. This is, yeah, Super Tourer. You nailed it, Aston Martin. You really, really nailed it. This is the Super Tourer. This is the car I would buy, you know, of a GT that can really perform. Jeremy Clarkson once said, I think he was talking about driving a 911 versus a Jaguar, and he said, well, every time you're driving behind an XK, I believe it was an XK or XKR, you're going to look at the Jaguar and look at your Porsche and say, did I make the right decision? I think I might be in that boat in a couple of years, especially when these have kind of come down a little bit in price. I think this is better looking than a 911. As someone who just bought a 911, I can easily admit that. Oh boy. Let's summarize. Sounds good, handles well, more than well, it handles really, really good. It's fast, the interior is beautiful. I really can't fault this car much at all. If I had to get nitpicky, I don't even know where I'd start. This is the car to beat in this class. Again, you look at the Roma, you look at a 911 Turbo, you look at this, and just purely looks alone, why would you look at the other two cars? Honestly. Yeah. Well done, Aston Martin. Having said that, if you've liked this video, if you like Aston Martins, if you like British marquee cars, if you like British luxury cars, if you like British sports cars, if you like any type of high-end performance car, please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.